We've been waiting to have our first guest for a while because we wanted to make it really a meaningful guest. And if you read the title of our today's episode, I think you can understand that um, we might have gone a little bit too far because I don't know how we will really be able to top this guest today.
We have the one and only Martin Bramah. I'm sure you all know, founding member of the Fall, founding member of Blue Orchids, founding member of the new band House of All,
Many other projects.
side projects all over the place, and he just really has never stopped creating. And even with some time off to become a container driver, he keeps creating great music. And if you haven't listened, definitely give it a shot. We invited Martin on, and he seemed excited to have the opportunity to chat with us. And it seemed like anybody. He loves his work, and I think he's truly, reaching the crescendo of his career, and really having a lot of fun with what he's creating right now.
Yeah, it was, we did have a lot of questions about Blue Orchids and the first album because we're covering it for Blue Orchids Week. But as you would expect, probably from someone of Martin Bramah's prolific creative output, he's not too keen on looking backwards or, being nostalgic, which I actually really appreciate. And we actually, we got the vibe of that and turned and did a lot of talk about the Blue Orchids most recent album and then also the House of Fall, which was really interesting, wasn't it, Steve?
It's House of All.
House of All. You can see we did our research on this.
I thought this interview was just fantastic. He's a very laid back guy, and he seemed to enjoy answering kind of any of our questions off the wall, kind of going back to his fall days. He was a great storyteller, honestly, of just kind of intermixing what he's doing now with, some funny anecdotes, funny stories, things that happened in the past, things that he's looking forward to. It was just surprising how gracious he was with, the two of us, and just having fun and listening, and spent an hour with us of his busy schedule. And I think you all really will enjoy what's you're about to listen to.
Yep. So sit back, relax, and this is probably the best way we could have asked to start up our hopefully, and we have a lot of future ideas about great special guests, but first in the lineage, in the queue. So enjoy our chat with the gracious and always interesting and creative Martin Bramah. Hey Martin, how's it going? Yeah. How's your day going?
It's going good.
It's probably almost time for a pint over there, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to resist the urge at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Where are you located these days?
Manchester, back in Manchester.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Moved around a bit in recent years, but last nearly 3 years I've been back in Manchester.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm Gavin. It's
Hi,
nice
Gavin.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Steve. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So we're doing a Blue Orchids week, and we're gonna be we're doing the first album, Blue Orchids album, which has really been great with the deluxe expanded, and then we're doing the latest Blue Orchids album. But we're hoping to talk about those two today, and then maybe also chat with you a little bit about the new House of All Continuum album, if that's cool with you.
For sure, yeah.
So let's jump right into it. We're really excited to have this because, as we've talked about on the podcast, Martin, you are one of our favorite songwriting guitarists, and we're hoping to talk a little bit about the musicianship and the instrumentation of a lot of the albums we've talked about over the past month or so. and you're the founding, obviously, guitar player in the fall, and you started this great sound that has really gone on since that time point. And it's interesting because now you're playing with Peter Greenway, which is like a bookend, and he's such an excellent
Yeah.
guitar player too. And I'm just wondering if you could tell us when you first picked up the first guitar and connected with it, if you can give us some insight into that.
Well, yeah, I think I was about 14, and my father brought home like a nylon string acoustic guitar they picked up from a guy at work, and I think it cost me about £4, in English money. And it was just I didn't do much with it for a couple of years. Well, actually, the guy brought it around himself. He dropped it off at our house, so he showed me two chords before he left, which were like a minor and D7 for some reason. So I knew these two chords, A minor and D7. For a couple of years, I just strummed those two chords. And then I kind of, 14, 15, I started to get more interested in music. And then I got another guitar, a steel strum acoustic, and learned a couple more chords, yeah. I learned from just a blues standard, a book of blues standards. So I just learned the basic chords that apply to blues and rock from that, and then immediately just started to write my own songs. It seemed natural to me. So I didn't have any guitar lessons apart from those two chords. I just looked at the chord windows, learned the shapes, and learning to play. I immediately just wanted to write as well. So I just wrote kind of primitive, garage rock. But I was always interested in kind of inverting the structures of things. Just in the attempt to be original in some way. Attempt to be original. I just kind of swap things around and try and, as we all do, try and write something original. But so I was kind of always into. I was already listening to quite minimalist rock and stuff, so I knew you could do very little and it could be very effective. So I learned that early on.
Was your family musical at all? Was there music in the house?
No. Well, I didn't know my real father growing up. My mother and he split when I was a few months old, but he was actually a bass player in a jazz band. He played double bass and electric bass, but I didn't meet him till I was like 33. So my stepfather, when I was 7, my mother remarried him, so I had a stepfather. He was a chef. My mother did admin work, secretarial work. So just kind of, when I say chef, he was a chef in a big hotel in the centre of Manchester. So it's more of a kind of a working class chef. He'd done his national service and he did that in the catering course. So when he left the army, he went to catering, so he became a chef. So it wasn't like some Michelin star high flying chef. It's just a working class kind of chef, So yeah, quite a working class family and no real music in the family. We didn't get a record player till I was about 14 as well, coincidentally. Until then, I just listened to the radio. But we bought a vinyl record player when I was 14. And I started spending my pocket money on just buying 7-inch singles and stuff. And that was the early 70s.
So it sounds like it was a pretty independent thing for you. When did you start to play with other people and kind of get comfortable or get interested in adding other musicians or playing guitar with other people? Yeah, well, we kind of had a band at secondary school, as we call it. When you're kind of 11, 12, you start secondary school till 16. We had a bit of a band there, some friends. And also, I was playing with Tony Frail because he went to the same school as me, so I'd known Tony since I was about 12. And so we would just jam around on whatever was to hand. And Tony was quite a creative chap. And so I had a band independent of Tony with Carl Burns playing drums because he was another local lad. He didn't go to my school, but he was in the neighbourhood, so I'd known him since he was about 13. And
Yeah, so me and Carl had a kind of rock band. I kind of it was kind of the pretensions of being somewhere between the Stooges and the New York Dolls, you know.
Yeah, sure.
We were pretty dreadful. But yeah, so and I was also playing music with Tony, as I say, but it wasn't in that band as such. But then Tony met Mark Smith, you know, and that was the beginning of all that.
Yeah. I'm wondering, there's the lore, there's so many stories around the fall, but there's one that always I was curious about, and maybe you can set me straight, is there's a story that originally when you and Mark started to write songs together, that the original idea was you were going to be the lead singer and Mark would be the guitarist. Is there any truth to that?
Only kind of. I mean, we weren't before at that point. We were just friends messing
Right.
around in an attic room, you know, on
Hmm.
primitive cassette recorder. And because I'd been in this band with Carl, where I was the singer, um, and Mark had a guitar, I had an electric guitar. I didn't. I still had a kind of acoustic guitar, kind of an stop with the F rolls.
Huh.
Didn't have a pickup on it that picks up at school. And so yeah, but Mark couldn't play the guitar. He bought this cheap Black Les Paul copy, and he kind of made noises with it, but he didn't have a good sense of rhythm, and he hadn't sort of got the hang of the chords and things, you know what I mean? So
Right. Right.
yeah, so yeah, it was undefined to begin with. We all had ideas, we'd all written some lyrics and you know vague ideas. So we'd each sing our own songs. I mean, it's not like Mark just played guitar, but he was the first to have an electric guitar.
I
But
see.
it quickly just sat in the corner and gathered dust. So, and it's Mark Smith himself who actually said I was the original singer in the fall, but that's stretching it as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
I think he's just trying to be falsely modest or something. I never wanted to be the singer, man. You know. To be honest, when I first knew Mark, I imagined he'd grow to be some kind of a cynical rock journalist rather than a rock singer.
Oh, really? Yeah.
He read the music papers cover to cover every week, and he knew the writing styles of all the main journalists and stuff. I really thought he'd go into some kind of criticism, you know, because of his nature.
Sure.
You know,
I could see that too. And also
yeah.
the way he interacted with the journalists, it was like, he knew it was he was well read in all of their writing. So it made sense that he
Mm.
might have been seen, maybe pushing them in some ways if he didn't think they were up to snuff as far as
Yeah,
what they felt
he's a
written about.
frustrated rock journalist, I think.
Yeah, right,
He was
exactly.
kind of worn up on them because he did know their styles and what they were into because he read the papers so religiously, the music papers.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so he kind of knew more about them than they did about him in the early days.
Right.
So I think it helped his reputation. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Martin, I would love to jump into the talk a little bit about the greatest hit Money Mountain because you
Mm,
just released the 40th anniversary, which
yeah.
is it's really cool to hear. And I'd really like to know, you probably had to revisit it, right? Because you're putting it out again and remastered. It sounds great. But I wonder what your experience was to revisit this album and if your relationship changed with it or if you heard new things. What was it like for you?
I listened to the master once to make sure it was okay.
Okay.
I've not listened to it much for years properly, but that was refreshing to hear it again. You know, that one time. I find it hard to listen to my own stuff a lot. You know, repeatedly. You know, I mean, to me, it's a really old record, and it's you know it's great. But my mind's on the new stuff always.
Yeah.
But what was it like? I mean, for me, it's very personal because it's tied up with a lot of memories of the time and place. You know, so the way I hear it is now how other people hear it. Obviously, you know, I suppose a lot of
Yes.
people say it. But you know, really pleased with it.
Can I
Yeah,
ask
because it evokes a lot of personal memory, so it's hard to talk about.
No, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But can I ask you about the demos that are included? Because the demos are fun. I mean, it's so fun to listen to. And even there's it almost seems like the tape warp on some of them. There's a pitch shifting. It's really cool and interesting to put these on and listen to them in adjacent to the proper recordings. What was the decision to include these songs?
Well, that was John Henderson's decision, the guy who runs Tiny Global, people who released it. Um, Again, I appreciate the documents and they're interesting to listen to, I would have been kind of reluctant to release them because the quality is so poor, you know. But I know it doesn't matter. But you know, yeah, it wasn't my decision, but I wasn't against it, you know. So I mean, they're fascinating, I suppose. The Flood and Disney Boys, because that was before there really was a band. We just we were in a local studio graveyard in Prestwich. I think Joy Division made demos in there and a few other Manchester bands. But we were in there in its early days. I think it's a 4-track and then it became an 8-track tape studio. Yeah, and I was using a drum machine, and obviously Una was playing keyboards, and it's just me and Una on those 2 tracks. And I put the drum machine through a phase effect pedal, so that just for the sake of weirdness. But it does mean that the kick drums kind of disappearing and reappearing.
Right.
It goes through a slow phase. Yes, yeah, and there's a lot of tape hits, and I'm finding my voice, I suppose, on that. But it's got a kind of soft psychedelia about it,
Definitely.
you know. So that's good.
It seemed like it was kind of hard for people to categorize kind of what kind of band you were going to become, or you were. Did you guys have a specific kind of lane you were hoping to go into, or was it just kind of an experiment and see where it took you?
Yeah, it was an experiment. We're just following our muse, really. I wanted to do something. There was a departure from the Fall, obviously. So I don't know what the departure is. I was kind of feeling when I left the Fall, it was getting a bit negative. You know, I mean, obviously there's a certain negativity in what the Fall does that's very appealing. You know, negative's the wrong word maybe, but a cynical kind of take on that. And we wanted to do something a bit more. Well, psychedelic sounds like a cliche, I suppose, but we would describe it as neo-psychedelic. But we were all doing so much LSD back then that our music was just drenched in that kind of alternate reality. And I wanted to kind of make music you could trip to, I suppose. We were tripping in the early days when we recorded the music as well. So it was kind of like it was that thing of like we were coming from somewhere else, you know, bring things back to this mundane world with us in the process.
Yeah, the psychedelia is definitely there, but it's almost like a dream. Like when I'm listening to it, it's this imagery is so beautiful, but it's abstract, but it's also real world. And I really appreciate it and I really enjoy it. And there's also these images that come to me when I'm listening, which is somewhat related to maybe religion, spirituality, which I enjoy as well, because it's so unique and it's not direct. I'm just wondering if you're comfortable to discuss your own relationship with religion, spirituality, and how it finds its way into the music.
Yeah, it's a big subject. I'm happy to discuss it. Well, I'm not a member of any religion, but I have, you know, a spirituality of my own. To me, I have faith in the great mystery of life. I don't claim to know if there's a God or anything divine, but there's definitely a mystery beyond our comprehension. And it's where the mundane world mingles with the magical world, the great mystery. So the fact I have faith that there is a mystery, there's something unexplainable. That's kind of where my faith comes from. Faith in not in some known religious entity, but in the unknowable magic and mystery of the world. And so what I wanted to do lyrically was kind of express that in the here and now without the cliches around religion and spirituality, but try and express it in a fresh way, you know, in a simple way, in rock lyrics, which is a bit pointless in some. But that's what I wanted to do. There's nothing else that was interesting. It was interesting me, you know, because we were all about trying to redefine rock and drop the cliches that were there. and just write something fresh and in the moment that was relevant to nice current perception of the world. You know. That was the attempt, you know, lyrically, and musically too, I suppose.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it does come across. You always ask the big question. It seems like you're asking big questions across the Blue Orchids albums and even into the new House of All albums as well.
Mm.
But then I also take away there's a specific reoccurring theme in specific tracks, which is one like Rocket to Stardom, and then even what I take away from the greatest hit or my own interpretation of the greatest hit in some ways is observations or perceptions of music industry, music business, what you're seeing other people do. I'm
Yeah.
wondering from your perspective, because you've been in the industry for a while, but you've been always doing your own thing. What's
Mm.
your perspective is of it and how you function within it or with outside of it? I'm curious.
Yeah, I've always kind of functioned outside of it. I've always shied away from the music business. I've had opportunities and walked in the opposite direction, not always intentionally, but yeah, I've got a bit of a phobia about the music business. I think
Yeah.
I don't want to compromise. I don't want to be successful at the price they demand for that success. So I like making music, you know, and so when that's infringed upon by the business, I tend to move away from that and carry on doing what I enjoy doing. You know?
Hmm.
So it means I'm, you know, on the fringes of the business. I try and sell records, but you know, I don't compromise the music. You know, I'm not unique in that, but you know that's why I'm where I am.
Mhm.
It means I've kept going because I've kept an interest. I've not had my dreams shattered by being drawn into the industry kind of thing. So yeah, you've got to have a strong sense of why you're doing it. I
Mhm.
mean, I dropped out of music for like a good 8 to 10 years in my late 30s and early 40s because I kind of lost the reason, or I went to question it because it all comes so easy, really. You know, the fall were in the national music press almost as soon as we started gigging. You know, when we were still in our late teens, so that it'd been handed to us like really quickly and easily, and we kind of took it for granted that we deserved it, and we had something important to say, and it was all meant to be, kind of thing. Um, and then by my mid thirties, I just wanted to kind of get off that carousel, you know, get off that ride, and just do something mundane and normal for a bit. Get, you know, do a day job and forget about all that. But I think after a while, after a few years, I realised I felt a bit rudderless, you know, and gradually realised music is where I fit in the world. You know, it's the only thing that makes sense of my life in a way, and I still had something to contribute. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think once I came back into music, you know, in the late noughties, like 2008, really.
Mhm.
I think I've done my best work since I found myself and no reason why. My music matured, my lyrics matured in some ways. Two different phases, you know, but I'm really happy with what I've done in the last 10, 15 years, or however long it is now.
You did a lot of interesting jobs in the time you took off, and I'm wondering if any one of those particular jobs or multiple provided any inspiration as far as music, you know, or some content that you put into the music.
Hard to say.
Hmm.
Yeah, hard to say how it rubs out. I think it just gave me more realism, you know, more not just more life
Sure.
experience, more realism. But uh, yeah, I mean, I was doing a lot of pretty mundane jobs. I wasn't, you know, I've never stayed at any kind of regular day work long. You know, done a lot of different jobs, and you know, spent quite a lot of time off as well doing nothing. But yeah, you know, just bumming around, doing lots of blue collar jobs and things like that. I was a bus driver in London for a year. I had a 1 year contract, so they were long hours dealing with the public. Um, lots of delivery driving stuff like that, like a lot of musicians do in London and Manchester and around the country. I work for Neil's Yard Remedies, which are like a quite a well-known natural cosmetics and herbal remedies company.
Yeah.
Like that, like a sort of market version of the body shop. I don't know if you get all that in America, but export administration and stuff. Yeah, just boring jobs, but I don't know if it helped me music.
Can we talk about this electric ukulele? Because this is such a unique this is such a unique sound. Even when Steve and I were listening to the album together, the first few handful of times, every time we would hear it, it almost would show itself as it sounds, it could be a different instrument every time you hear it, right? Like I could hear it as a mandolin at sometimes, almost like a keyboard, synthetic keyboard sometimes. It's such a unique sound. I'm wondering how you decided that this was a good fit for the Blue Orchid sound.
Yeah, well, it was a gift out of the blue. It really was. I felt more and more I wanted somebody to be playing lead, apart from myself, lead guitar, basically. I was thinking, like the obvious. Because the more I became a singer, songwriter, the less I was being inventive on the guitar, because it's hard to wear those two hats and keep swapping them all the time. And I've done a lot of, fairly innovative work as a guitarist, like in the early fall and early Blue Orchids and stuff. But more and more, I kind of thought, it's like, oh, here comes a guitar solo, and I felt like I was repeating myself, just becoming more of a regular rock guitarist. So, and I focus more on singing now, and I don't like to keep repeating myself. So I thought I need someone, a talented lead guitarist, or something. And then Tansy McNally got in touch with me. She sent me some demos. She's originally from Melbourne in Australia, but she moved to London and was playing with a band that got together down there. And she sent me some demos they'd made, and to ask me what I thought and for advice, because she was also a DJ on in Melbourne. She was a DJ on local radio. So I already knew her, just online to talk to about stuff, because she's a big Fall fan. Anyway, she sent me these demos, and I immediately thought, this is fresh, because I thought, I want something that would fill the top end, and rather than I knew another guitar wasn't quite right, because I'm kind of playing rhythm guitar when I'm singing, and I needed something to fill the top end of the sound, like say mandolin or something, I didn't know what. And I never thought of ukulele. I'd never seen a solid body electric ukulele.
No, never seen it. Yeah.
So she sent me these demos, and immediately was like, this is good. So I said, well, why don't you come and have a jam with us? And because she wasn't that happy with the band. When I heard them, I thought that, what she's doing sounds really good, but the drummer's kind of out of time. The singer sounds like Ian Curtis, and it's like, maybe she should come to Manchester and have a jam with Blue Orchids and see what happens. So that's what happened. And immediately I thought, this is great. It's just adding that, like the kind of fluidity, and she's constantly kind of improvising around the themes. And she can play rhythm and lead, and again having that woman's kind of mentality to music. She's not being macho and trying to show off or be aggressive in the way she plays. It's a bit more lyrical and exploring, different fields, I suppose. So yeah, it's a big plus getting her in. Yeah, I'm really pleased. And she had to have she's got 2 electric ukuleles that she had to have handmade in South Africa for her. They're hard to come by. So yeah.
You looked them up, and they're very beautiful instruments by themselves. Really, and the sound that comes out is unbelievable as well.
Yeah, that was a real lucky, bit of synchronicity that we did on the last 3 albums. Yeah.
The current version of the lineup of the band, we haven't been able, obviously we're in America, we haven't been able to catch you guys live, but we've seen so many videos of you guys performing that it looks like you guys are having so much fun. I'm wondering what is the most fun part about playing with this incarnation of the band?
Well, we all get on as friends, and so we just really enjoy playing together. We just enjoy hanging out and playing. We've just got a really good lineup at the moment. Well, recent lineups have all been good in their own way.
Yeah,
What you said so what the best thing is, because the best thing is playing the music, you know. So
sure, sure.
You've had, been in so many different bands and played with so
mm,
many different musicians. What do you enjoy that aspect, the camaraderie of being in a band? And like, what is your favorite part? Do you enjoy playing live? Is it the recording, getting it down on tape, or, where do you find the most joy for you?
I think recording, yeah, I think the recording process always fascinates me, and it's very rewarding when you realize something, and it comes together. Because you never know what you're going to end up with when you walk into a studio.
Hmm.
And I find that the most interesting aspect. Playing live is always fun. Well, it can be. It can be a pain in the ass as well sometimes. uh, so many variables and things you can't control. It can be great.
Right.
It can be a bit of a pain, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. But yeah, recording is primarily still where I get the main kick. The magic of the studio, walking into that sacred space.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We talked about the demos for the Blue Orchids first album, but what is your current like demo process like? Do you have a space that you write in? Do you record on a phone or you record on a cassette? What is it like for you?
Yeah, the writing process has changed over the last few years in a lot of ways. I've kind of speeded up the process.
Hmm.
You might have seen I've been quite kind of busy,
Right. Yes.
years making records. And like with House of All, I literally took them in the studio without any ideas. I just wanted to get those Explore members in the studio with and just catch them totally catch the spontaneity of just playing with them together again. So we didn't rehearse. I wanted it to be that the rehearsal is what we recorded. The first rehearsal was what we recorded, and that's what we did. I booked 3 days in the studio. We set up 2 drum kits, and then just started jamming on basic ideas and recording everything. And yeah. So nothing was written. I had words written, but I hadn't bothered to write any music. So then I brought the backing tracks home and just like trying to fit words to the songs. Like listen to the songs and just go, oh, those lyrics will fit that one. Those will fit that. And if they didn't quite fit, I just cross out the bits that don't fit, make them fit. Just put it together really quickly. And so it's fresh, and I can enjoy it more as well that way. The quicker
Right.
you work, the more you can enjoy the product yourself, the end product. Because if you labour over it too long, you're kind of sick of it by the time it's all finished.
Hmm.
So I've been trusting the process more, and I'm not kind of waiting for inspiration or some genius idea. It's like you can spend ages trying to think of something really clever to write, or some genius chord structure, or some riff, that nobody's done, and it's like it's not going to happen most of the time,
Hmm.
rarely. And so I end up with just mediocre ideas quite often, or retreading old ground. But if you just put people on the spot, it's surprising what they come up with. So that's
Yeah.
what we did. And so I've been doing that more. I mean, Blue Orchids have rehearsed songs. We still the next Blue Orchids album I might do the same thing and just make them go in the studio without anything written or
Oh
without
yeah.
rehearsing. But they're reluctant to do that. But they've seen how well it works for House of All, so I might just make them do that next time. Because otherwise you're waiting around for me to write something really good, and it could be quite a long.
Right, 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 right.
I don't.
Is this a yeah, it sounded like you did a lot of improvisation with the House of All and then just, taking the self-titled album that just came out less than a year ago is so organic. Like you can tell that it has a great sound of just a band in a studio. There's a lot of space, which I love.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering for the new House of All Continuum album that's coming out on April 2nd on Tiny Global Productions, it sounds we got our advanced copy and we've been
Oh,
loving it
right.
because it is the sound is not the same as the first one. It's
Mm.
much more, I don't know, could you tell us about the production choices? Because I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we actually recorded the second album, or the backing tracks, the music for the second album, before the first one came out. So we recorded the first one in June of 2022, and we recorded the second one in January 2023, before the first one came out. Because I wanted to get them back in the studio before it kind of hit, the public ear, and we had to kind of match it. So I thought, and we did exactly the same thing again. We booked the same studio, booked 3 days, and just told them to turn up. But this time, obviously, they're a bit more wise to the process. So the songs are a little bit more structured, just even though they're still off the cuff. It's like, well, we can't just play that riff for 5 minutes again. We've got to have a change, And I'm like, oh, okay,
If we have to.
yeah. Because I was quite happy to just stick with one bass line for 5 minutes. When you get two drummers, it's all you need. But yeah, so naturally there's a little bit more structure came in just because they were wising up and they were determined to just make a bit more effort. But in fact, we did it in 2 days that day, because the first day I was really ill and I didn't turn up at the studio. So so the first day they just setting up a drum sound and jamming about. But yeah, so we did the second album backing tracks, all the music in 2 days. But then I took longer over the vocals, probably, on the second album, and just it's a bit more structured, a bit more arranged. I mean, it's a progression. It's not a million miles away from the first one, but we've just developed the theme, and they were a bit more comfortable with the process. Things got a little bit more structured. It's still pretty simple. There are some changes, key changes and things.
Yeah, this album has a lot of other instrumentation though too that is really fun. I'm thinking of the last track in specifically.
Yeah, there's mandolin on the last track.
Yeah, it's really.
Played the mandolin.
You played that? I was about to ask who played that.
It's me. I've got a nice kind of bluegrass style mandolin I've had for years. With the scrolls and everything.
Absolutely.
But actually, there's less instrumentation in a way. I mean, as I said, there's more structure and arrangement, but there's less of the organ guitar. The organ's actually played on a guitar. I've got this effects pedal that makes guitar.
Oh, is it?
Organ.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah, some people, all the organ sounds on both albums. It's called a C9 organ machine made by Electro Harmonics, and you just plug your guitar into this foot pedal, and you've got various settings that turn it into different kinds of organs. So
it has a mellotron too, right? It has like all these. Yeah, it's very good.
this one doesn't have the mellotron. Oh no, yeah, it does. It has mellotron strings. Oh no, mellotron flute. It has. That's it. Yeah, so it sounds a bit like Strawberry Fields kind of thing.
Right.
But that's right. It has mellotron, and it kind of does a Deep Purple sound and a kind of Raymond's Dorsey sound and a Led Zeppelin organ sound. All the classic organ sounds from the 60s and early 70s. It makes your guitar make all those kind of noises. So I use that, instead of getting a keyboard player in. I didn't want someone who could play keyboards because they're so busy, keyboard players. I like the tones of the keyboard, but I like it to be simple. Playing those kind of tones on guitar, it's much more simple and minimal, Which is kind of like early Blue Orchids and Fall keyboards, very rudimentary.
It lays a nice foundation though for you guys. Yeah.
So there's less of that guitar organ on the second album, but it is on a couple of tracks. And like I say, it's on the last track, the long slow ballad. Well, at the end of it, when the mandolin comes in.
So it seemed like when you started House of All that you were gonna kind of open it up to a lot of ex-members. Is it kind of a closed project at this point, or are you still?
It might open up for the third album. Yeah, it's been fixed because when you have this sort of, originally it was a one-off project. We were going in the studio, and the idea was, it's like an open door for ex-4 members. But once you kind of take it on the road and start doing gigs, it becomes more fixed, inevitably, because you've got to rehearse people. They've got to know the songs, learn the songs, know the songs, and be available to tour. So it becomes a band before it's quite fixed. But it wasn't the intention, but it's just the way it unfolded. But I've got ideas. We're going to do a third album, probably in the summer. After we've got a tour in April, then we'll probably start thinking about doing a third album. And I've got some ideas for there may be other people involved, but I'm not saying anything about
Yeah.
that.
I'm sure.
Well, if and when you come over to the United States and you open to new roadies, Steve and I are ready.
Okay.
Because we know that's typically been a nice stepping stone from roadie into a higher
Good luck, Steve
position.
Hanley. Yeah.
um
Later.
yeah. Can you talk about the double drummer dynamic? Because it it seems, I mean, from a songwriting perspective, well, you guys are doing a lot of improvisation, but it seems like it has to be taken into account about how a song is, accessed through double drummer. It's
Mm.
seems like a lot.
Yeah. Well, the double drummer thing, it wasn't the it wasn't the first idea. When I first started doing this, after Mark had died and a respectable gap had happened, I kind of had this idea it'd be good to do a project with ex-ball members. But at first I was imagining kind of a hex trials concept, which trial the next induction are. And those people, some permutation of those people, again, based on the idea of improvising, because there's a lot of that well, there seems to be on hex induction and on which trials and some. And asked various people, and it didn't quite come together. But I hadn't had the idea of two drummers until I bumped into Si in a bar. He was actually trying to get Blue Orchids keyboard player John Paul Moran to play in a band he was putting together, and so I turned up to kind of make sure that didn't happen. Jill told me he was meeting Si, so I went along because I knew what was going on. But in the process, I got talking to Si because I'd already talked to Paul and Steve and Mark Riley, but Mark Riley wouldn't do it because he's just not making music anymore. I didn't want to pick up the guitar again. So I knew Paul and Steve were interested, and then I suddenly thought, Si and Paul, two drummers, and that was kind of a light bulb moment. And the thing with two drummers is it's just so much fun to hear them play that you can work any idea. And because they've never played together before, and as I say, we didn't rehearse. So when they set up two kits and got behind them, it's like suddenly they're getting to know each other in real time, and we're recording it. So that's the beauty of it. They're just getting off on each other, playing, listening to each other.
Right.
It's a perfect situation, perfect scenario. And like, we're hearing that, we're getting off on that. And, so the whole thing just had great energy. And the other thing about it was, of course, we'd only worked together in the past in the context of the fall, working with Mark Smith. And so, in a sense, his spirit was kind of there because when we worked together in the studio, the energy and the focus kind of brought that spirit into play as well. It was like he was just in the control room out of earshot. In a sense, we weren't saying that to each other, but you could feel it's got that vibe, which you don't always get in studios with other bands and other musicians, So that's also something that gave it an edge. And I think it was good that we recorded both albums before the first album came out, so they've still got that quality. We're in the same studio. We hadn't seen each other for 6 months when we recorded the second album because we hadn't been gigging or anything at that point. And we were in a band and we were rehearsing. We'd just done this one session in June and we did the second session in January. Yeah, so the two drummer thing was just it's not the first time it's ever been done, obviously, but it was you just knew that was it. That idea was the idea, would make it work, make it something exciting to do. And just setting up the kits, watching them sit behind the kit and just get to know each other.
Absolutely.
At the same time, we're coming up with basic, simple ideas. And it was just a no-brainer. It sounded great. We just knew it was going to be great straight away.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we had 40 minutes of music, I just said, "That's it. 8 songs we're done." Then we just crafted it after that, and just mixing it and putting the lyrics in the right place. And
also visually, the double drummer visually is just so stunning too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we're big fans of the band. If you're familiar, the OCs, which are heavily they're
I love
heavily
those.
influenced by the fall, but every
Mhm.
time we see them, we're just, it's just hypnotic. It's just it takes you to another place.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It does have that, like say, hypnotic effect.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
first time I saw two drummers was actually Captain Beefheart at the Nebworth Festival
Sure.
before
Yeah.
Pink Floyd in 1975. And they had Jimmy Carl Black from Zappa's band and the regular drummer, I think it was Drumbo French, I think. But anyway, Beefheart had two drummers that at this, it was an open air festival. Uh, and that was mind blowing. Yeah, yeah. I was still about 16 then. So the two drummers are
Perfect.
really special.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, with all of your bands, you have this hard work ethic where it's apparent because you just are it's so prolific and everything is such quality. And I'm wondering, you got all ex-Fall members, which are obviously it's just almost a requirement that they have that temperament. And I'm wondering if that comes into play when you're mixing stuff. I mean, how hands-on is everyone in the band when it comes to the mixing process or the secondary processes of after the recording?
With Blue Orchids, House of All, slightly different in each band. But to be honest, with House of All, in the recording process, they because we've got more of that fall approach. They actually just play their instruments, and then they didn't come in the studio for the mix.
Okay.
Yeah, because somebody's got to. You don't want people too many. It's the too many cooks thing, you know.
Right.
You don't want
Right.
everybody bickering over their parts, and you
Right.
can't help but focus on your own part and make it and want it to be right. And it can sometimes be to the detriment of the larger sound, the overall soundscape. And so, yeah, no, for the mix, mostly it was me and an engineer sitting through the mixing process. People would pop in and out, but it's like we were all sat heads around the desk, like some many-headed hydra. Yeah, no, so because like I say, with the fall, they used to just being told to go away and letting Mark torture the engineer till it. So it's kind of like that. They knew that they can't all come in and have a say. So yeah, was Blue Orchids a little bit more organic. No, I tend to let the drummer make sure the drummer's happy with the drum sound at least.
Okay. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, people come in and you just check it. Does the drum sound okay? Yeah, they're okay. But I mean, that's all. They're such old stalwarts. They more or less. It's a decent studio. They know the drums sound okay. Yeah, they sound okay because they're going to be different. Everything you play it back on, it sounds a bit different. So yeah, we're not too fussy really. As long as we're in a decent studio, we work with the engineer. You just got to live with the end result. Trying to get some preconceived idea onto a record. It's not always the best way to go. Sometimes you just got to get used to what's actually been recorded rather than try and make it sound like your preconceived idea of what you wanted beforehand. If that makes sense.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Absolutely, it does.
So yeah, but I'm not saying I was Mark Smith in the studio by any means, but but they did leave me to get on with it because they know somebody's kind of got a final say. So I was lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
Because I was one with the record deal and I booked studio time and it was my kind of original idea to get them in. They kind of accept that it's my baby.
Well, they knew you weren't going to leave and then come back to a bunch of kazoos on the record, right?
Yeah, thought about putting some bongos on, but
So one of the things we like to do is kind of analyze or look at the artwork on the albums. Is that something that you have a creative process in, or you're involved with, or?
yeah, always, yeah. I in one way or another, yeah, I choose the sleeve artwork. With House of All, I've been going for a photographer for photographs, and obviously with Blue Orchids, the last three albums have been done by Tansy McNally. It's always good to have a real artist doing your sleeve rather than some graphic designer,
Right.
And it's hard to find, someone with like their own vision, they'll quirk on to put these things together. But I tend to oversee it and just make sure graphics are working for me.
Can you talk a little bit about the two albums, House of All covers?
House of All covers. Well, they're both by Jim Donnelly, who's an old friend of mine. He was actually like the first Fall roadie back in the day. He's another one of the guys I kind of grew up with, who were in our gang before we were a band, you know. Like, I know him as long as Tony Frio and Carl Burns and John Key, he's a really close friend, but he made it into the song No Xmas for John Keys, of course, because he was just part of our gang.
Oh,
To come bridge with him over something and put him into a song, which he's quite happy to be immortalised in that way. But yeah, what was the question? I've gone off at a tangent.
Just because you got these interesting buildings on both of the covers.
Yeah, Jim Donnelly. Yeah, so Jim Donnelly's the photographer, and the first cover is actually, it's just the building across the way from where we were recording the album. So the album's recorded in Hope Mill, which is a big old mill, you know, converted into various artistic workspaces and studios and stuff.
Sure.
But when you look out the window across the car park, there's another mill, which is the front cover. He just stuck the camera, when he was taking pictures of the band to document the session, at one point he just stuck the camera out the window and took a picture of the mill opposite, which is called Spectator Mill. And that's the front cover. It's just such a nice image.
It is.
He just sent me the pictures from the day, and that was in there. And I thought it was a really strong image, and it just seemed part of the organic, spontaneous process. The way we recorded it and everything, it's just have the front sleeve just there in the photo session shoot as well, already done, you know. And it was just in that, you know. Yeah, it seemed obvious. It was appropriate, you know. And then we just put the title of the album at the bottom of the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Steve and I were discussing, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but a lot of the early Fall singles had buildings of Manchester on, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but we enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, well, intentional. Well, you know, not intentional in that sense, but it seemed obvious. Like I say, because we didn't say, right, we need you to take a picture of some iconic building in Manchester because that's what the Falls is, you know.
Right.
It's just like when he sent me the photographs of the day, that image was in the shot of all the band shots, you know. And it's like, oh, that's good. But for the same reason, it just seemed, it was obviously appropriate for the reasons you're saying, because it has echoes of other images the Falls have used in the past. But yeah, we didn't set out to do that. It just so happened the image was there, you know, presented to us. So
it's very fitting to the sound as well. But Martin, we don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you probably got a lot on your plate. If you want to just tell us a little bit about what's coming up for the band, maybe, and pass it along to the listeners.
Well, if you're in the UK, House of All are going to be on tour next month in April. So, you know, get online and check that out. I'm not reading all the dates out now, but we're doing like 9 dates around the UK, covering most of the country. So over 3 long weekends. So get onto that. The new album's obviously out on the 2nd of April, as you already mentioned. Continuum. Blue Orchids will be back in the studio probably summer, some point. No, we're playing the End of the Road Festival, House of All, in August, which is a big festival in the UK. It's sort of second only to Glastonbury Festival, I think.
Oh, cool.
Look out for that if you're in the UK. Yeah, no plans to get to the States at the moment. It's just a budget thing, really.
Understandable.
We'd love to do it, and if you know somebody can make it work financially, we'd be there. Yeah. We'll see.
Well, Martin, we've enjoyed going through the albums that we've gone through on the podcast, and listening to Steve and I, definitely connecting over them. It's been great, and we look forward to all the new endeavors on albums on the future horizon. But thank you again for chatting with us. It's been a great time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Nice to speak to you both.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yeah, take
Cheers.
care.
Cheers.